In this episode of Wood Chips and Black Steel, I'm going to talk about bedding the barrel in action into the 03 Springfield Sporter. Now, I mentioned in the first video that the customer brought in this gunstock, and I also mentioned that it had been tinkered with by somebody before me. Whenever you bed a gunstock, we need to always start with a datum point. And unfortunately, the datum in this gunstock was totally messed up, so I had to literally recreate that out of whole cloth. Getting everything to line up was a nightmare because nothing was where it needed to be. There was no starting point, and I had to recreate that starting point when that starting point should have been there originally. So in this video, I'll talk you through some of the issues that I had, some of the gunsmithing techniques that we use, and share a little gun making history with you. And if you stick around until the end of the video, I'll tell you some of the things that I've got coming up. So let's roll this episode of Wood Chips and Black Steel. Today we've got a really important fit that we need to accomplish. We need to get the barrel in action mated to this top inletting. But what makes this extremely important is that we need to make sure that we've got our mating surface between the recoil on the receiver and then the recoil pocket on the stock, so that we have good full contact across the entire width of both the recoil surface on the steel and then the recoil mating surface on the wood itself. Now, in order to do that, we're going to use something called inletting black. Inletting black is a modern material that we use to mark the stocks. So we'll take this inletting black and we'll mark the back of the recoil surface on the receiver. And then also we have another important dimension, and that's on the back of this radius. We need to ensure that when we're done doing the inletting and we've set back completely against the recoil surface, that this radius isn't contacting the radius on the back of the stock. If we don't have a little bit of a gap back there, a few thousandths, then when the gun recoils or recoils back, and if we keep impacting that radius, then it'll act like a wedge on a log splitter, for instance. It'll start to wedge and then eventually crack the stock in this location. So we need to maintain a really good contact on the recoil surface, and then again leave a few thousandths gap back here so that we don't split the stock. Now, I mentioned that we use this inletting black. It comes in a small jar. But back in the early days of custom stock inletting, they used to use lamp black, and the lamp black was from a kerosene lamp, and they would set it up so it was really sooty, and then getting all of that soot, they'd run the barrel over that soot, and then the soot would leave an imprint on the wood stock itself. Let me show you the telltale sign that the inletting black leaves us. Here is the recoil lug on the receiver, and I put a little lamp black on the Q-tip, and then I just rub it back and forth until I get a good even coating on that lug. And then I also mentioned the need to do this on that back radius. So that's where we're mating, or that's where we're blackening. So let's put it in. Let's see what happens. So we'll get that in. Take a light hammer. It has a rubber end on this, and then we're going to just tap that back on the muzzle end, and basically we're trying to set up something that looks like a recoil. And if we've done this well, and then remove the barrel in action, what we should see is where the contact is, and clearly we have a contact patch on this right side of this recoil pocket, and we have a lot of contact back in this radius. So we're going to have to remove that, and we'll just keep removing the material from this surface or this side of the pocket until we start to get an even contact on both sides. And then again, we want to get this material removed until we've eliminated any contact at all. And then I'll use a feeler gauge or some kind of material, thickness material, to make sure that I've got enough clearance here that I'm never going to worry about splitting this out. Now, I mentioned that we needed to remove material on half of this recoil pocket, and then of course in this back radius. There are several ways to do this. We could use a Bridgeport and set it up in a vise and then mill that away. We could use a sharp chisel and then sort of just work away a little bit at a time. And then we have chisels for both the front, and then we have a radius chisel that we could use in the back. We could use files, some really good sharp files, carefully used. We can remove that material a little bit at a time. And same in the back, we have a radius file that we can just remove materials wherever the black is. Just scrape it gently, removing just the black. And in fact, we'll probably use some combination of all of them. Depending on how much material has to come away, will determine what tool I use. But we're going to keep doing that until we've got that good contact surface all the way across the entire width of the recoil pocket. We have one more fit requirement that we need to also plan for and think about. We need to make sure that the bottom housing, trigger guard, box mag housing, and the receiver actually mate up. So the holes need to be in alignment for both the bottom and for the top. Now we've already got the bottom all set up. So all the inletting is done, all the fitting is done. But you can see that we've got to get these bolts down through these holes into the receiver. So right now, I know that the two holes aren't lined up. They're not mating between the top and the bottom. So not only do I need to get those recoil lengths and that radius correct, I need to make sure that when I've met those dimensions for both the recoil and that radius, that they actually line up with the holes on the bottom. So that's one additional thing that I need to be thinking about and planning for during the entire process of moving that recoil back until it mates up with those holes. I hope you enjoyed that video. I don't know what I'm going to do yet for the next one. I have a bunch of footage in the can, but I'm sure I'll come up with something. I've got stuff on wood selection, stock design, laying out the Gunstock, and also we're going to do more on this custom sporter. So if you enjoyed this video, click the like, even a dislike if you didn't like it, but please comment. If you liked it, please comment if you didn't like it, so I can help grow in my video production and the content that I provide for you. Subscribe to my channel, ring the bell so you get notified the next time I post a video, and until the next one, thanks for watching.